All right, hello everyone, and welcome back to episode 3 of the Recruit podcast. I'm Harrison, and I'm joined again by Drew. Today, we're going to be talking about resume formatting and how you can format your resume in the best way to not only make it past ATS systems, but put yourself in the best position to land an interview. So, Drew, this is something that we've seen a lot, and we've spent a lot of time meeting with candidates, helping them reformat their resume. Just off the bat, what are some of the biggest problems that you see with candidates when they are sending over resumes?
Yeah, I mean, the first and foremost thing is always going to be, bad formatting. Too often international candidates, well, it's standard practice in a lot of their countries to be using like pictures, like a headshot is going to be the first thing. Absolutely no hiring manager in the US wants to be looking at a headshot. They're looking for content about what is the value that you're going to be able to provide to their organization. And so, trying to maximize that white space on that page, right? And if an eighth of the page is taken up by a headshot, that's certainly the last thing that they want to see.
Yeah, 100%. So that's one of the main ones is leaving out the profile image, trying to keep everything on one page. We've seen some resumes that are 4 or 5 pages long. I promise you, no one is going to be reading that long. So try and keep it as concise as possible. Ideally, one page, maybe 2 pages if you need to. Always make sure that things are neatly hyperlinked. That's something that we've seen too, is people including these really long links rather make sure things are hyperlinked. And then, Drew, in terms of the actual structure of it, should people start with experience, skills? What should the first thing be? Should they have a professional summary? How would you go about structuring it like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of like the actual summary, you obviously put the contact information at the top, professional summary, keep it brief, no more than 2 to 3 lines. We want to be looking at their experience and then their education, any specific skills. If you're an engineer, listing out your specific tech stack that you're most comfortable with. And then, at the very bottom, if there's anything else that you want to add. But, I would say 95% of the content should be focusing around, your work experience and what you're actually bringing to the table there. And really, I mean, like touching on a point that I had said earlier, any hiring manager, decision maker, they're going to be skimming through the resume for, all of 6 to 10 seconds. And so they're really looking for, robust, action oriented, what you're going to be able to do for them. And so make sure that you're keeping that in mind as you're crafting your resume.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think another point of that is giving enough context of your experience at a place. If you were at one job for a year and then another job for 4 years, make sure that you actually put all the context of that 4 year job in there as opposed to just 2 or 3 lines. We've seen people work at a company for a brief amount of time and give us very little information. And then we have to go back and say, like, hey, extrapolate on this. What did you actually do while you were there? So I think that's another important point is make sure that you actually give enough context of what you really did there, how you helped, and try and give actual numbers and values. Did you make the system faster? How much did you cut down processing time? How many users did you process? And kind of things like that. Drew, is there anything else that you think is important for candidates to know or avoid or do in terms of their resume, even in terms of things like PDFs, documents, things like that?
Yeah, just to touch on kind of like what you had just said in terms of like the content. So, a bad example, right, would be something like a bullet point that says responsible for backend development. Okay. No kidding, you're a backend engineer. You have to go into further detail. Something like scaled backend API to handle, 5 million requests per day with 99.9 uptime. That, is being able to go into detail and quantifies the metrics of what your impact was for the organization. So something like that.
We've seen people often sending us like .docx files. Try and avoid that as much as possible. You always want to be sending PDFs, if ideally, avoid any kind of like weird formatting things like RTF files, etc. Always be
Crisp
giving us like, yeah,
PDF is the only answer in this industry.
yeah, 100%. And then also in terms of that, in terms of the fonts that you use, don't use these weird, funky fonts. You want to use like a sans serif or something like that, like a very just well-known, simple font, easy to read. Try and avoid like really wonky fonts.
Yeah. The only
Yeah.
thing that, so my general rule of thumb is make the resume look boring. The only thing that should really jump out on a resume is the value that you're going to provide to the organization. That's all they're looking for. They don't care about fancy fonts. They don't care about, anything like that. They just want to understand what your skill set is.
Yep, 100%. And another top tip would be try and include your side projects in there if you can. Obviously, you only have limited space, but something that hiring managers really look for as a signal of curiosity and drive is your side project, especially if you're a software engineer or even if you're a designer or something like that, including some kind of personal website or something that can show more about what you've been doing is going to help them see what you're doing in your spare time when you're not being paid.
Yeah, absolutely. And then one other tiny thing that I always think is looks nice is just even the naming convention, like first name underscore last name underscore resume. Leave it crisp and clean like that, so that when that hiring manager goes back to find that, they don't have to dig through a bunch of wherever it is they're going through their downloads.
Yeah, 100%. And then something else in terms of getting a resume through the ATS system. An ATS system is what all these companies are going to be using to look at your resume. It's called an applicant tracking system. All of these systems are going to be using keywords. So what you want to do to put yourself in the best position is try to use as many keywords as you can that are actually true and relevant to your experience. So as we were saying, talking about the tech stack that you've been using, talking about the skills that you're developing, the more keywords that you can use that are actually relevant to your skill set, it's going to help you rank higher in the system and avoid basically getting automatically rejected.
Absolutely.
Perfect. Well, Drew, thank you so much. We will include a template in the show notes so that you can see an example of what a really good resume looks like and something that you can use and copy to reformat your resume. And thank you so much for watching, and we will see you in the next episode.
Fantastic. Take care.